This little project is very simple. It's really for a beginner, but it's so effective. You can create these wire pom-poms to create earrings, necklaces, handbag charms, whatever you want. And here you can see a few variations. This one's got a bead connected to it, but they don't have to. They can be on twisted stalks and stems. What you do need, which makes it a little bit simpler, is a coiling gizmo. So if you have a handheld one or a bracket that goes onto a table, and obviously some coloured wires of your choice, and use the thinner wires. So these are 0.45, that sort of, not more than 6, I would say, for this style. Connect it to the eye of the handle, as you can see there, then place it into the bracket. And then keeping the tension on the wire, you just have to turn the handle and off you go. So you're really just creating a long coil, an even shaped long coil that would be very long-winded to do by hand. I mean, you could wrap it around a knitting needle and do the whole thing by hand, but this, and I'm not speeding up the film, I promise. This is me just coiling and coiling and coiling. It's a bit like if you're doing baking and you're beating eggs, you get very used to just going very fast, doing something very repetitive. So create the coil as long as you want. This is a good 2 inches. I'm doing it that length because I've decided to create earrings, and so I'm going to cut this coil in half rather than make 2 separate pieces. But if you were making a necklace, you'd probably keep it that size because you'd want it a bit bigger. Just snip off the long raggedy ends, but do keep the ends sticking out because you'll want to use those to stretch the whole thing out. You need something to hold on to. So I've made some of these already. I'm using, I usually use 2 or 3, at least 3 tones of colour for my pom-poms. It gives a sort of depth to the colour and to the piece. So I'm cutting them all in half, and that's because I'm making earrings. So I've got a silver, I've got a green, I've got a blue, and I've got a sort of turquoisey aqua one. And I always start with the darkest colour first and then layer up lighter and lighter colours on the top. So pull out, so get the very, very ends on each side. So you need to sort of find them sometimes, and then just stretch the coil out, but not completely. Leave a sort of a certain amount of curly-whirliness in it. And then just make a circle, only because you don't want it to be spiky at the end. And with your fingers, just bring the whole thing round into a sort of spiral. That gives you the nucleus for the bead. And then use the rest of the wire to wrap around that, as if you'd make a ball of wool or string or something. You're turning it and wrapping, turning and wrapping. And I'm not pushing it too hard in. I want to keep that sort of curly-whirliness, as I called it, because I don't want it too squashed down. I want it to remain like that. And then just, bring it all together so that it is a little bit more round. So just squeeze and form it until it's moulded to that round shape. So for earrings, obviously you'd have to work in tandem. So here's the second one, do exactly the same. So create a sort of circle with the end so there's no spiky end, curl it into a spiral, then wrap and wrap, not too tight, just keeping a bit of space between the wraps, but it will sort of hook itself onto itself as you bring the wire round and round. And then when you get to the very, very end, just pull out the last bit so that it's straight, and you can push it into the center of the ball, and that way there's no spiky end. So those are that's the first layer of the start of your earrings. Now the next color, so slightly lighter, I'm going for the green. So connect it by pushing it into the center again of the pom-pom ball, and then do the same thing, just go round and round and try and cover the entire area just by turning and turning it. And again, don't push too hard, but push it in to the coils, and that way it sort of connects inside those areas, and then push the end of the wire back into the center of the ball. And that's how you keep layering all these various colors. And this is completely up to you, obviously, how many layers you want to put on. The more layers you put on, naturally it will become slightly bigger and bigger. So that's, up to you. If you don't want it too large, don't keep going. But I like to create this depth of tone by, starting off with a darker color and then building up to a lighter and lighter color. And it gives this lovely sort of, I don't know, more three-dimensional effect to the piece. So I've got less of the turquoise one, but it just highlights, just brings up and lightens it a bit. And then I'm going to end with the silver. So this is 0.4 silver plated wire, just to add a touch of sort of zing to my piece. And also it's going to be connected onto a silver ear finding, so I wanted to bring the silver in. And go round and round and round again, and that way you can just end off by placing the spiky end back right deep inside the center of the unit. So just spend a bit of time adjusting it and molding it and shaping it so that it is as round as you can get it to look. And as I say, if you felt you needed more wire, you just coil another piece and carry on adding and adding. You can just keep adding. You can also sew on with your 0.4 or 0.3, sew on little beads to sit within the, around it. But now I'm going to thread. This is 0.8 millimeter, 20 gauge. Just twist and twist until it pokes through to the other side. I'm going to thread it with the wire, the thicker wire. Create a link. You can either create a head pin, but I'm going to create a link because I want to dangle a little bead off it. I'm going to give that a bit of a hammer just to work hard on it, and that way that link is nice and tough, so when I pull it back through, it's nice and firm and doesn't misshape. So I've got that. Then I can connect. I've already pre-made a little bead that is already on a head pin and a link, so that can dangle off the end of my earring. And on the opposite side of the pom-pom, I'm going to leave a little bit of a stem and then create a link to hang off my ear wire, because I like it to sit off a stalk. I don't know, that's just my personal preference when I'm wearing them. I think if you had very short hair you might want it differently, but I'm just going to work hard on this stem. So I'm holding it and pulling and twisting the wire, holding and pulling and twisting, and that is straightening that stem wire and also work hardening it so that it's not going to misshape. It's going to stay nice and straight. And it's a bit too long, so I'm just going to trim it and then create a link at the top. So I'm bending it to a right angle so that the link sits centrally to the stem, and then I can connect my ear wire to the top. And hey presto, there we have one earring ready. So all I have to do is finish off the second one. And here we are. I'm just putting finishing touches to the second earring and linking that on to the head pin that I made. And I actually added one more link to my bead because I felt they weren't moving. They didn't have the movement, so that gives them a bit more flow at the base of the earring. And as you can see, you can also make a necklace with sort of some little dangly beads at the base, which gives you a lovely set. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have fun creating your own pom-poms.